Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, founder and CEO of recruiting and consulting firm Riderflex. When I first started the company, Riderflex was really just a consulting business for me as an individual. It was a LLC and a brand name that I used as a consultant. I remember reading this book. I can't even remember the name of it. Sorry. This book encouraged you as a new consultant, a new business owner that ran their own consulting firm. This book encouraged you to never work with shitty clients. In fact, it encouraged you to fire crappy clients right away. Now, when you're first starting out as a business owner, that is tough to do because you're starving for cash usually. You're grabbing at any kind of assignment you can get to make sure you pay your mortgage, and you're usually putting up with people that you don't want to deal with, but you have to because you need the cash. Almost everybody goes through that in startup life, unless you're funded from the very beginning or you had a few $1 million in the bank. And hey, if you did, great, good for you. But most of us had to scrap and claw our way when we first started. But anyway, this book, I remember this book saying, hey, get rid of crappy clients right away, because if you deal with them, number one, it's going to make you irritable. It's going to make you frustrated. You'll end up doing a bad job for that client anyway, and it takes your focus off of landing new and better clients. I remember specifically the coaching that this book gave. Meanwhile, I started my business, and then Riderflex eventually became a recruiting firm, primarily a recruiting firm. We still do some consulting, but primarily recruiting. So now we're a pretty large business. I'm recording this on August 21st of 2021. We're headed towards a couple $1 million a year in revenue. I don't mind sharing that with you. We have employees, contractors, and so now we're a real company. Anyway, as I've moved along here and we've ran the business, we now are finally firing clients we don't want to work with. I never thought I would do that. Looking back, I remember, especially with my co-founder, Scott Kegris, great, wonderful person, best co-founder on the planet. I remember him, we were sitting in a couple of bars when we first started, drinking some beers, drowning our sorrows, talking about how we were starving and going broke and using our savings, trying to get this thing going. At that time, we would never even dream of firing a client. We were just hoping the phone rang, right? We needed cash in the bank. We'd deal with Satan himself if we had to. We just wanted business. But that quickly got to a point where we could be more selective. I should have done it sooner. I should have followed the book's advice, because if you do get rid of crappy clients, it may be scary, but it will open the door for you. It will free up time to grab better clients that pay on time, that communicate well, that are easier to work with, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on and on and on. And now Scott and I are at a point. In fact, I was reminded by this, and the reason I'm doing the episode is because we just fired a client recently. He calls me up, and we've fired a few now over the years, but another one just happened recently, and that's why I wanted to do the episode. Scott calls me up and he's like, hey man, this client is an asshole. They're treating our recruiter like crap. They don't communicate well. They don't pay on time. The people that we have placed there in the past, the candidates that we've placed there, say that it's a horrible place to work, etc. Scott calls me up. He's like, hey, I think we should fire this client and call him and tell him to take a hike. I was like, yep, let's do that. Now, at first, my mind went to what it usually does, which is the math, right? I looked at the math and I'm like, okay, how much does this client pay us? What's the cash loss on this deal? But it was the right thing to do. The recruiter called me and the recruiter said, this is a terrible situation. I don't want to work for them. The recruiter already didn't want to work for the client that we have on our team. And so we fired the client. Guess what? 3 days later, we got a new contract with a better client. That's how it happens. Free yourself up from assholes. Okay. A lot of you have the quote, no asshole rule when it comes to employees. I hear CEOs say that all the time. They'll be like, oh, we have a no asshole rule policy here for employees. Do the same thing for vendors and clients. Okay. Life's too short. Don't work for assholes. You don't have to. You don't have to, because the majority of the people walking around on planet Earth are good people. The vast majority of people walking around are good. People are inherently good. I know TV and radio and social media sometimes makes you think that, 80% of the people walking around are jerks, but that's not true. That's not true. The vast majority of people walking around on planet Earth are good people. So when you do come across somebody that's an ass, just remove yourself from that situation. There's this great quote. This recruiter that used to work for us, she's not with us anymore. She went on to do something else, but she had this quote one time, and I use it all the time now. It was a great line. This is what she said. Same thing. She was dealing with a bad client at the time. She calls me up and she says, Steve, I just don't need that experience in my life right now. Let that sink in. Is that not a great line? I just don't need that experience in my life right now. I love it. I use it all the time now. We use it on clients too if we get some that are bad. Anyway, there is your Riderflex tip of the day.